Today, I'm standing on the beach in Australia, and this is the perfect place to explain to you how the thrust targets work. So if you imagine looking at it, basically you've got a low point where we come down to a low, and it's this first move off the low, that uninterrupted buying thrust, that determines the extent of the target. We then get a reversal, an uninterrupted buying thrust when we don't fall back by a certain unit. We then get a reversal of 3 units, and then when we go another unit higher, that's what we call activation. And this thrust is going to be twice the length of that thrust, so all the way to there. That's how the targets work.
So I'm back in my room, and hopefully that rather visual description of how the targets work helps people understand them. But here is the diagram. You get that initial thrust off a low, a pullback by more than 3 units, a thrust to a new move, and then that's the target. That generates the target. And lots of Updata people are using these now, and I'm getting lots of great feedback. So hopefully you're enjoying using the targets. But let's look at where we're seeing some big thrusts at the moment. So the euro, this is the interesting one at the moment. Clearly, we're not going to quite meet this trajectory now. We are slowly pulling back. It's going to be a slower move towards this trajectory, some 8% higher. And of course, we've got resistance to think about, and there's no short-term targets. So we shouldn't be surprised to just see that. You want the different time frames to be lining up. This is my daily chart, my medium term, and my short-term chart, my 60-minute chart. So, and then here we've got this downside target that is not yet activated, which is why it's in orange. If we do fall below that level, it's at 104.50. We fall below that level, then the target will move to here, giving us a new downside target to below parity. So for the moment, that's the situation on the euro. One chart that is much clearer on the targets is Bitcoin. Here we're looking at the daily chart, really quite key, running up the hill. Notice how this target last year was given on February, not quite met. We've got these new thrusts that are giving new upside targets, and they have been activated some 40 to 50% higher for Bitcoin. So that will be very interesting to see into the autumn this year. So we'll see whether we follow that trajectory, but the train tracks gives us a cluster both in price and in time to August this year. So it'll be very interesting to see that. Looking at the Nasdaq, we see here we've got this downside target on the short-term chart, not showing yet on the daily chart. What we want to see here is a reversal and then a move lower, and that would give us a thrust. So this hasn't happened yet because we haven't actually locked the downside, but we're seeing it here, some 3% lower on the 60-minute chart. These targets were exceeded on the upside, which was bullish, but we are back below the cloud, so really quite key there as well. So really watch that for sure. Looking at the DAX in Germany, we're up slightly. Notice here the lower high, then the lower low. So that is a sign that this move is running out of steam. And of course, we've got the downside target, some 2.8% lower. We've got a little bit of a relief rally going on short term, but very short term, but the downside target is very much in train. So that's certainly one thing to think about when looking at the DAX. Now, Japan is really bucking the trend here. Japan is up 0.5% overnight, and we're seeing here, and I'm still in Asia, we're seeing here that this move continues. So we've got upside targets on the daily. They're looking like they'll take longer. This is a standard of 2 to 1, so 2 days for every unit of 0.5% of price. If you like, 1% every 4 days. That's the angle, but it looks like it's going to happen much, much slower. But on the 60-minute chart, that's looking on trajectory at the moment. So really interesting there. If we look at Hong Kong, we see here really clear downside targets on the daily. That's the thrust off a move lower, then a move lower gives us that target to 15% lower. On this short-term 60-minute chart, we see that as well, some 3% lower, so looking pretty bearish there. And on the Chinese market, really showing through here too. We've got downside targets and really clear train tracks here on the 60-minute chart, so not good news for the Chinese market. The Oz market, we didn't quite get to that upside target. It was given in October, November on the daily chart. We moved higher, but really we just didn't quite get to the target, and it's looking now a little bit worrying. We're just starting to move through the cloud. Watch out for a new downside target here on the short term, so that's going to be really quite key. Gold, we look here on gold, we're seeing upside target, which is some 18% higher, but for the short term, we've got a pullback, and that's the downside. That was the thrust given off the high, activated. That's the target level. Not quite there yet, and happening more slowly. It was happening in that sort of speed to begin with, but now we're pulled away. It'd be very interesting to see, but we are starting to make lower lows from that low that we saw last week, and so maybe we will get to this target. It's just going to happen more slowly, so really quite interesting. Last year we covered the US 10-year yield, and we talked about the target to the upside to 4.19%. We were just below 4% at the time, and most people just didn't believe that we would move higher again, but that target is actually happening. We see that bounce in yields, and so really interesting that that's the target, roughly on trajectory at the moment, so keep an eye on that. Watch out for any new targets, of course. And of course, if you're trading any of these things short term, keep an eye on the 1 minute targets. We'll take a look at the 1 minute target in a minute. So looking at the energy mix now, really quite key here. First of all, we start with Brent Crude. Really fascinating image here. We moved lower here. That was the downside target. We actually moved lower there. And then on the upside, we've actually got a new upside target not yet activated. A move above 82 would activate that, and that gives us a target all the way to 99.70. So really quite interesting seeing that. But the key thing is we've got these upside targets on the short-term chart, 81.20, 84.35. These are the upside targets to be met really this week is what we're saying, anywhere between 4 and 8%. So keep an eye out on that. And of course, if you're looking at our morning call reports, we do the 1 minute target, giving you the view for what's going to happen today on Brent Crude. So looking now at emissions, really not great here on the daily chart. These targets all given previously. We had downside target met, new upside targets met, downside targets given all the way down here, and they've been met. Notice how that one was pretty much met, and we've got a new downside target of 58.84, but we have had this relief rally, so that's really quite key there. But we've got this new downside target activated, just activated on the 60-minute chart to 70 euros 70. So really quite key, another 6% lower. So this rally, you do get quite often sharp relief rallies where you get big counter trend moves, but we are still below the cloud on the daily with these downside targets. So whilst we had that flurry in emissions, it's back to looking pretty bearish. So really quite interesting there. Now, if we look at TTF, we could actually look at a 1 minute chart. And I do these for my morning call out to clients. So this was on Friday. We had the upside targets here given. This one not quite met, so that's kind of a little bit bearish. New downside targets started kicking in the afternoon on Friday before the close. And then this morning, we've got another new target to 31.64, some 4% lower. You really do need to be watching these targets on your 1 minute charts short term. If you're trading anything really, that's the way to look at these. Now, that's it for today. I'm back in London this week, so look forward to seeing you there. Until then, happy charting. Bye for now.